Hello, welcome to SESMII Studios in our broadcast of 6 Degrees of Smart Manufacturing. I am Conrad Leba.
And I'm Mike Yost.
In this series, we cover different perspectives and topics on smart manufacturing from the many points of view of manufacturers, practitioners, engineers, integrators, educators, and researchers, the many people involved in the smart manufacturing journey. Today, we have a 20-minute chat about some important smart manufacturing concepts. You can use the Q&A feature to send us questions. However, if we run out of time to answer those questions, we will continue that conversation in our LinkedIn group, and we will give you that link at the end of the show.
Excellent. Thank you, Conrad, and welcome everybody. Just for those of you who are new to us, to answer the question, why do we talk about 6 degrees of smart transformation? It's based on the idea that of 6 degrees of separation, which says that all people on the planet are only 6 or fewer social connections away from knowing each other. And so when we look at how do we share information, how do we democratize the knowledge required to make smart manufacturing a reality, we think the best way to do that is to get as many opinions from as many people as possible. And we think that we're that close to being able to find out what we need to make smart manufacturing a reality by engaging as many people as possible. So today, it'll be me and Conrad.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about what does smart manufacturing look like from the truth perspective, the truth about smart manufacturing. What this is about today is Mike and I have been running these shows for a while, and we've been talking about all kinds of dimensions of smart manufacturing, right? I mean, education, cybersecurity, machine learning. Well, today we want to do an introspection, and we want to focus on just what is smart manufacturing, because you might have heard all these things and it's like, so it seems like smart manufacturing can be anything. But we want to get a little more specific today about what it is and how SESMII is helping converge these concepts of smart manufacturing.
Right, and we're going to stick with our traditional style of keeping it loose and sharing ideas. Hopefully some good ones with you, and just really bring everybody up to speed, bring you into the conversations that we've been having internally, working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes that we're ready to now start to bring out from behind the scenes and engage in conversations around truth in smart manufacturing. And just to give a little bit of background, we've been talking for some time internally here that smart manufacturing is an and conversation, right? And what we mean by that is that historically people will go solve one problem in a plant, and they will apply their expertise, they will apply modern technologies, and they will do smart things, right? They will make improvements and they will further their cause. However, that solution ends up basically being a point solution, solving one problem or one set of problems or one isolated area of impact. And then there are other problems that still exist that need to be solved with different solutions in different ways. And we end up in a situation where I'm still solving one problem at a time. And I think as we move forward in defining what smart manufacturing is, we have to be I guess a little bit more harsh on actually having a definition that holds. And we think that it should be able to solve one problem and the next problem and the next problem. So that got us talking about the conversation about smart manufacturing and discussion. And Conrad drove us down into the engineering mindset and said, hey, that sounds like an and gate. And
it definitely reminds me about the and gate and logic. And so
explain that, please.
Yeah, so the AND gate is a digital logic gate, and it implements a logical AND conjunction and behaves according to that truth table there we have on the right-hand side with inputs and outputs. And the idea is that you can only have a high output if every input into the AND gate is high. And if any of them is low, then the output of the AND operator is low. So, and in this truth table, low would be 0 and high would be 1. So what we've done is say, okay, this is the AND conversation that we've been having. Basically, you have to have all these inputs into smart manufacturing have to be high for the result to be high, a high value of smart manufacturing. And if you're not doing them all, then we're not really doing what we feel smart manufacturing is.
Yeah, and part of the challenge that we have with this is that if you're going to challenge somebody about whether they're doing something smart or not, well, then you're going to put them in a position of potentially calling them not smart, right? And so it's been a challenge for many, many years. Conrad and I have been around for a long time. And we know that the terminology is a problem, right? The language is a problem. We could go through the audience today and ask everybody for their definition of smart manufacturing and get a different answer from everybody. And everybody would probably nod their heads and say, yeah, that's largely right, but I have this bit of perspective. One of the examples that Conrad and I were talking about years ago, I heard read C.S. Lewis talking about the meaning of the word gentleman and how it at one point referred to men that owned land. And it also had some connotation about behavior. And eventually people started to say, well, couldn't somebody who doesn't own land be more gentlemanly than somebody who does? And eventually the meaning of the word changed to where you could talk about a gentleman and it did not mean what it originally meant.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to defend that at all, other than to say that we have to be that strict when it comes to definitions of smart, right? The smart manufacturing, we have to have some criteria. We have to have some definition by which we can say, this is really what we mean individually and collectively when we're talking about smart.
Yeah, and an example of the importance of having a consistent definition. In our education committee last week, we were discussing the possible value of having a smart manufacturing certificate, and whether it was one certificate or levels of certificate. But in general, there's an agreement that for a manufacturer, if you put that on your resume, what will a manufacturer expect to have of the skills that come with smart manufacturing, right? If we all define smart manufacturing differently, if everybody issuing certificates defines it differently, then the meaning for a manufacturer or putting that on your resume will not have much value. So it's very important that we converge on at least some 80% commonality of what we mean by smart manufacturing, so that then it's a valuable term in how we communicate.
Right. Absolutely. And I think when we look at it as being the U.S. National Institute on Smart Manufacturing, we believe it falls to us from a responsibility perspective to drive this dialogue and have the conversation about how do we adequately define what smart manufacturing is, right?
But maybe, yeah, let's get more specific about what we mean in terms of the normal conversation around an innovation project.
Yeah, and just one point on this quickly as people try to absorb what they're looking at here. I think that it's generally pretty well understood and evolved over the years that when you're going to deploy a solution or deploy a technology-based system in manufacturing today, it is a solution sale, right? And it is a process of understanding the business outcomes that are required from the manufacturer, how it aligns with their strategies, what they're looking to accomplish, and then you align the technologies appropriately from the other side, right? And so I think people have been talking about that and been evolving that way in their thinking and their approach for some time, but we still have, a gap there in effectively connecting the two perspectives.
So a traditional view, when we, or a typical view of innovation, we're always it's easy to get enamored by the technology conversation. So it's easy to approach this from the right, and I've been on the vendor side of this, and it's easy to say, look, I have some great technology that can help you, and it's true. They all have great value propositions. So I feel very strongly that if you implement this technology, you will achieve results and you will gain benefits, right? So it's easy to come at that conversation that way. But you can then easily end up implementing these separate systems, right? And implement a quality goes and does their quality solution, and maintenance goes and does their asset management solution. Operation goes and implement their MES solutions. And at the end of that, if a company is doing all these things, are we done smart manufacturing? Do we declare now we've done all these implementations, these great systems, therefore this is a smart factory?
Well, and one of the points too, right, that I think is pertinent to this conversation is that we're talking about systems, right? We're talking about technologies, but technology is only one leg of the stool, right? It's people, processes, technology, right? If you're not committed to supporting your people, you don't have commitment from your organization behaviorally, organizationally, operationally to change. If you don't commit to changing processes and looking at things differently of how you're going to respond to the information that you may get, then the technology piece is not going to solve the problems for you. So if we go back to the and gate conversation, before we even get into a technology look, you better have a high or a positive that you're committed and understand what it means from a people perspective, what it means from a process perspective, and then we get into the conversation from a technology perspective.
And when I think about people and process, I think about that's really the business side of things, right? And we're coming at this then from the manufacturer's perspective and focus on business outcomes. And we're always telling people, let's start with your business strategy. If you come and ask me about technology and I'm a good consultant out there, I'm going to tell you, well, let's take a step back and look at what are you trying to achieve as a business, right? And that's what the left side of this diagram is talking about. As a business, I'm coming at that, and I might want to implement some initiatives around quality, compliance, or throughput, agility, but I have to have a business reason to do this. And the results, and you might conclude that you need to modernize your technology and your system, but this is a much healthier way to come at it.
Yeah, and I think too, Conrad, as we've talked and lived many times, that in addition to having strategies that are driven operationally, as we have listed out on the left side of the slide here, and so everybody knows this is a work in progress, right? We are working on how to visualize this, how to tell this story, how to put arrows in right places and things like that. But there's a real possibility that a manufacturing business may be taking a look and has a strategy around big data or has a strategy on the technology front. I remember years ago being at a conference working a panel, and somebody said, hey, it's a small manufacturer, and this was back when iPads and such were just starting to hit the plant floor. And he said, the owner of the company just came in, he was the IT leader, and said, owner gave me an iPad and said, go see what you can do with this. And one of our manufacturing folks from the automotive industry slammed his fist on the table and said, that's the wrong question, right? You don't lead with technology, right?
Yeah.
About that. What business problem are you trying to solve? So it is a reality that that there are benefits, like you said, to the technology, but how do they funnel?
Yeah, and when we look at this, we have to think of, well, is smart manufacturing just another application out there? Is it just an IoT platform? It's just another one of those smart manufacturing solutions, or what exactly is smart manufacturing? Why, if I implement my MES, my ERP, my asset management, and do all those things, then how is it that I could still end up not doing smart manufacturing? So we put our minds to that, and we've came up with the imperatives, that there's some guidelines that we can put in place, some principles, some concepts, that if we follow them when we're implementing these solutions, then we're converging into a smart manufacturing strategy.
Right. And I think it's important that, again, you'll see the draft listed up in the top right of this slide to show that we're still working through this, but that it's really important that we have a set of what we're calling here on the slide imperatives. It says for everybody's sake, like we can't use the term smart manufacturing if you don't meet all of these criteria, right? That if something's missing, there's going to be a problem. When I look at this, and you know, whether we end up with 5 or 7 or 9 or whatever it ends up being, we'll land on. But when I look to your point, Conrad, and he's talking about having a quality system, having a maintenance system, having an operations system, if they're not able to work together and interoperate, then we go down the path where we've been for many decades of having isolated, you know, standalone type of applications that are not part of the and story, right? If we're already collecting the data and we already have that information to drive, you know, performance of a machine, why can't we use that for quality? Why can't we use that for asset performance maintenance, et cetera, things like that. So again, I think it's one of the important points. At least that's what jumps out to me as we start talking about the imperatives.
Yeah, and all of these are important, and that's why there's an and in between them. Some are obvious, you know, we obviously we need to be secure, and we need to have a secure system, but some of them might not be as obvious. So for example, we need to be orchestrated and resilient in our how we because and it's hard to think of any of these by themselves too. So that's also a struggle with defining the principles, because they're related. So for example, we want to be flat and real time. So we're having real time data. Great. I have real time data, but what am I doing with it? So, and it's an enabler to some of these other ones. So there's definitely a relationship. So it enables me.
And even to that point, right, that the flat you're referring to is a flat organizational structure, right, where people can make decisions with the information that they're getting in real time, right? So this is not intended to be simply a technology view, right, but it's also to take a look at the people, processes, technology.
That's right, because it's not just the hierarchical data model that we're putting aside, and maybe we still have a hierarchical data model. It's about flattening the structure, the information structures, and the organizational structures that go, there's a reason why we're doing it, right? And that that business reason is that we want to be able to make decisions, more decisions locally, distributed, faster, right? And that real time though, and that connectivity and that interoperability then also allow me to have a more orchestrated value chain that is more dynamic, that it's more orchestrated with some autonomous feel to it, so that you know, alarms and predictions are kind of triggering behaviors in that whole value chain. This cannot happen if we depend on phone calls and emails. We need to have a B2B, not just only A to A, application to application, data exchange kind of ironed out and all standardized. That needs to go all the way into the value chain and supply chain with business to business type of data exchanges that allow us to be immediate, react very fast to changing demands out there.
Yeah. So Conrad, we were debating whether we'd have to have a bonus reel or not. We are actually out of time already.
Oh.
As we have consumed 20 minutes here, just getting to the point of having a conversation about the truth table. So just quickly to Conrad's points, this is an and conversation. We are defining the imperatives by which we believe we can have a clean, agreed upon definition of what smart manufacturing is. And we're starting to lay it out in the form to say, what happens if we're missing one area? So each of the red areas in a truth table here would be the zeros that Conrad talked about, which would lead to a negative result, which we've outlined on the right. And if they're all green on the top line, then we end up with something we can truly call smart manufacturing. Do you want to touch on this, Conrad?
Well, with 7 inputs, we didn't want to put the full truth table out there, but we want to focus on at least the show you what would happen if we have a low on any one of these 7 imperatives, right? And I guess we'll cover it in the bonus reel, but we'll go and then drill down a little bit more with a few more examples on what happens if you neglect one of these imperatives in the truth table. So you get a feeling for how the smart manufacturing truth table works.
Kind of shape up. Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, Conrad, with that, appreciate it. And sorry to give ourselves the hook here. I'm not doing a good job on the clock this time, but it's an important conversation that we want to continue to drive, right? Is there anything to say anything you want to say as far as engaging folks?
So I wanted to make sure to let you know. So we're all these concepts are being finalized. They're in a review cycle, but there's still time where we want some more input and review and contributors. So please reach out to us. Our email is going to be on that final slide.
Yep.
And we'll keep the conversation going in the bonus reel, but at the end of the day, we want to finalize these concepts, and we want to put an educational webcast out there with these concepts. And it's going to be one of the key concepts to rally around here about how we're defining smart manufacturing. Not the only one, but an important one.
Right. Absolutely. So with that, we will close this session. Apologize for running a little bit long today. Just to remind everybody that our rhythm is to operate and hold these sessions at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, the second and fourth Wednesday of every month. We've been doing this for over a year now, so plan to continue. We will be hosting Dr. Thorsten West on August 12th to have a conversation about smart manufacturing and a resilient supply chain. So encourage everybody to join us then. And as Conrad mentioned, here are our email addresses. If you have any questions or any desire to engage with us, please reach out right away. We would love to have you be part of the team.
Yeah.
Excellent. Have a great day.
Bye.